Almost done. Hang on a second. Redirecting, done. And there we go. Okay, I'm gonna, it's preparing. Yep, all right. Here we're gonna go to broadcast. Everybody ready?
Yep.
Have a good town hall. It's done. All right. Hang on a second. Redirecting, done. Okay, I had to mute my YouTube. Okay. All right, here we go. Where am I hitting broadcast? Well, welcome everyone out there that has tuned in for the June installment of the Connex Emerge Town Hall. And just want to welcome everyone. We appreciate you joining us. And I'd like to introduce our two of our initial panelists that may be recognizable to you. First of all, we've got our chair of our board of directors from Bottega Veneta. Please welcome Jordan Campbell. Jordan.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the first virtual town hall. This is super exciting. We're thrilled to bring you 4 of the most inspiring thought leaders from our industry coming to you live from across the country. This is an amazing opportunity for everybody. I encourage you to get involved in the conversation, ask questions. You're not likely to get these 4 minds on your screen at the same time for quite some time. So please get involved, stay active, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining. Bill?
Good deal. Well, welcome everyone. And I feel like we've been here before. Hopefully you have on our daily grinds. And these are our Emerge town halls. The concept behind this is we had so much great content. We have over 60 episodes now of the daily grind, but the 4 or 5 panelists, actually Jordan shorted himself there. He's one of our panelists too. But the our 4 panelists are all-stars from our initial tranche of daily grind episodes. And so we wanted to bring them back and get moving on this. I'm sure there's a lot to talk about. I'm sure there's a lot of questions out there. But to get this started, I'm going to turn it back to Carrie, who is going to introduce our panel and give them a chance to introduce themselves to you. So Carrie, back to you.
Thank you, Bill. And again, I'm coming to you from, as you can see, the Connex studios. And real quickly, we will have a chance for you to ask questions. If you look in your Zoom window at the very bottom, you'll see a Q&A button, and please feel free to submit your questions. You can go ahead and feel free to start doing that. And when we get into the Q&A section, we'll start taking a look at those and take those in order and go from there. So introducing our panelists, I'm going to introduce them one at a time, and they're going to tell you a little bit about themselves and their company. So to start us off, I'd like to welcome the Chief Operating Officer of Brinko National HVAC-R Management Services. Please welcome Ron Prager. Ron?
Good afternoon, everybody. First of all, I'd like to thank Connex for inviting me to appear on this panel. Brinko is a national provider of HVAC and refrigeration service, maintenance, and replacement, serving clients who operate multiple sites. I'm a mechanical engineer as well as a licensed HVAC tech. My wife, Renee, is an attorney, and together we've owned and operated Brinko for the last 25 years. Prior to that, we operated as a regional HVAC contractor, offering the same services in the New York metropolitan area. Back to you, Karen.
Thank you so much, Ron. Next up is the Chief Executive Officer of Pagnato Roof Intelligence Network. Please welcome Bill Pagnato. Bill?
Great. Pleased to be here again. Thanks, Connex, for having me. So Pagnato is a roof asset management company. What we do for our clients is we help them manage their roof portfolios for the lowest total cost of ownership. How we do that is through our roof platform, which we do roofing service, we do inspections and maintenance and project management, all on a base of data, which helps our clients make informed decisions and helps them budget their roof expenses as well.
All right, thank you, Bill.
You bet.
Thank you. So next up, we have a doctor in the house. the Vice President of Operations from Office Tracks. Please welcome Ashley McConnell, PhD. Ashley? Unmute yourself there, Ash.
I think I have, yep.
There you go.
Thank you very much for having me. As the introduction is, yes, I'm a doctor, but definitely not that kind of doctor. For Office Tracks, as you've alluded to, I have been working with the company now for 2 years. We are a customizable facilities maintenance software solution. So we deal with large multi-site retailers and national maintenance organizations, as well as service providers. So we've been in operation for 22 years, and we are based proudly in Toronto, Canada.
Thank you, Ashley. We've got, last but certainly not least, the Chief Executive Officer of the Branded Group. You can see there because his window or his screen is, his background is branded. Please welcome Michael Curlin. Mike.
Thanks, Carrie. Thank you, Connex. Appreciate you having us on today. Branded Group is a full-service nationwide facility and construction management company based out of Anaheim, California.
Great, Michael. Appreciate that. I'm going to turn it back over to you, Bill. I'm going to let you, I think you have a question for all our panelists, don't you?
Yes, hopefully it'll come as no surprise. So since we last talked, and I mentioned we've had so many of these episodes and we've been going through this, for 2 or 3 months now, and each of your areas of expertise, we were just getting into the beginning of the whole COVID shutdown. So starting with Ron, I'd like to gain your perspective on what has changed in the last 4 to 8 weeks since we last visited on the Daily Grind.
Unfortunately, more has stayed the same than has changed, but there have been some changes. Obviously, sites are reopening across the country. That's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
People appear to be willing to visit these sites as long as they feel comfortable doing so, that their health is not at risk. It appears that surface contamination or transfer of the virus via touching other surfaces is not as big a factor as we had initially thought. Unfortunately, we've heard recently that there is the possibility that the virus can be transmitted by air passing over infected people. There are a couple of studies going on right now where people in restaurants who were more than 6 feet away from infected persons who were dining did get the virus. And so there are studies being performed to see if air from air conditioning systems passing over infected people can transfer the infection to others. HVAC has become more important due to that, the perception of a clean environment, and also people wearing masks are uncomfortable at warmer temperatures. We've heard a lot of this. We're seeing clients who are now reducing the temperatures of their spaces. If they maintained 73 degrees before, they're now dropping to 71 because people are not comfortable with the masks on at 73 degrees. We're interestingly speaking with a general liability attorney the other day. They're expecting an onslaught of COVID liability suits. So it's something that building managers, facility managers have to keep in mind, need to document whatever is being done to prevent the transfer of the virus within their spaces.
Good deal. Interesting stuff. And certainly Ron deals a lot with airflow and HVAC and ventilation. And I know that Bill Pagnato, you're dealing with some very structural things that have happened that you shared with Connex as this reopening has started to lurch forward, Bill. So what has changed since we last talked on the Daily Grind?
Well, Bill, when you and I talked, we looked from the perspective of dark stores and how roofing impacts. And my concern was if this thing extended, sort of roofing out of sight, out of mind. And if there's nobody in the space and there's water intrusion, it's going to cause some issues. Sure enough, as stuff is opening up, we're getting an awful lot of calls for water intrusion. And then when the stores were dark, specifically one that just happened over the weekend in Miami, a large national retailer had a partial collapse, which again caused by a small leak turning into something bigger. Good news is though, is now that we're back in the stores, we're going to be able to not have these dark stores and we'll see the leaks be the symptom of the leak so that we can address it. We're also hearing from some of our shopping center customers. One in particular, they have 2,000 stores. Their goal was to open up 1,800 stores by the end of July, and they've already hit the 1,800. So dovetailing what Ron said, we're really seeing a lot of reopening in the stores. So that's good news.
Good stuff, Bill and Ashley. Now we've gone through this a couple times. Same question. What has changed since we talked on the Daily Grind?
Been doing is we've been helping our customers implement their plans. So we've been running through, reviewing their budgets with them and uploading those into the system. Very much we've been focused on the human aspect, is providing the listening ear and the challenges that they're experiencing with probably very limited staff, and doing a lot of training because we have with a lot of staff furloughed, they're having to take on some new roles and running through the system. So we've been doing lots of system training and review and showing them some new features that we've implemented over the past few weeks. While it's been a little bit crazy, we've still been managing to churn out some new features for our customer base, which has been great. So essentially just focusing on supporting and going through what was a little bit of a crazy times for the pandemic, and now we're doing the civil unrest. So yeah, key thing for us is just continuing to support our customers, both on a human side and the technology side.
Awesome. So that's a little Canadian perspective. Mike, then back out to the West Coast. We're covering all of North America. What are your thoughts on what has changed since we spoke a few months back?
Thanks, Bill. Kind of similar to what Ron said, not much has changed, except we've added in the fun civil unrest and also prepping up for hurricane season. So the team is still working completely remote from home. We're still at about 40% capacity. And like I said, we're dealing with the spikes of the workflow with all the stores reopening and the civil unrest. And the things that I've noticed is Orange County, California is actually pretty much back to normal and open. And we got the executive team together last week for a team dinner to kind of thank them for all their hard work because they've been pulling long hours. And the one thing I've started to notice is that a lot of people are coming out of this socially awkward. I feel like there's almost like a PTSD from being isolated for so long. So people that I've known for 5-6 years in the same room couldn't really look each other in the eye at first. It was kind of weird.
Interesting. Always an interesting perspective from Mike. I appreciate that. Jordan, anything to add before we turn this back over to Carrie?
I think, and Michael's point about civil unrest has been particularly problematic for a lot of retailers. I know for us, we were just taking down boards after extended COVID closures and put them right back up within the same week, and oftentimes a day apart. And there were material shortages going into COVID, and they were just redoubled when we started looking at boarding up for protests. And now everybody needs the same glass. So the materials and labor shortages is a real issue across the country. And I think we're all just going to have to be a little patient as we're all looking for the same people to do the same jobs with the same materials.
Good stuff. Thanks, Jordan. All right, Carrie, back to you for some questions.
Okay, thank you so much, Bill, and thank you, panelists. That's very insightful. We've got a couple of questions initially for you. These are for all the panelists. So I'll kind of just go down the line and just like we have done here in just the last few moments. The first question is, what challenges do you find your FM customers facing, such as spending constraints, reduced staffs, et cetera? What are you finding those challenges to be with your FM customers? Ron?
Oh, one of our major issues is scheduling, in that you don't necessarily have staff in the stores when the clients want to get preventive maintenance performed. They want maintenance performed prior to staff entering a store. Access issues as well. Dealing with maintenance at completely closed sites, that's another issue. Also, there is more time required for every process involved. We're finding that partially because of working remotely, partially because facility managers are operating remotely, and it's also because of communication within their own companies and less staff available across the board. We're also finding that triage is now a lot more important, and our facility managers are being required to do more with less resources. We're also finding more clients moving toward managed services because they have less in-house staff.
Okay, thank you, Ron. Bill?
Yeah, same thing, Ron. A lot of our clients, they basically cut their FMs in half. So they're handling a wider area. So you think they're relying more on vendors to help. And I think people at this table here are set up to do that. So kind of interesting. They're always restricted on travel, as you said, and expense. And sometimes they say necessity is the mother of invention. So we've been utilizing drone technology and also Zooms like we're doing here today for pre-job conferences and construction management conferences. And quite frankly, we're finding that it's almost better because you got all the people at the table at the same time, ownership, the manufacturers, the contractors, all discussing the issue. So that at the end game, when the bids are coming together, there's really not a lot of questions that we have to go back on because everything's been discussed. So we're seeing really quality projects coming out of, again, necessity. So kind of interesting.
All right, thank you, Bill. Ashley, what about you?
I think just building upon what both Ron and Bill has said, we're looking at, the triage being an important aspect. So our system's able to, implement, those checklists to help them, make sure that we run through a lot of the questions that maybe could help solve it before we actually have to escalate it and create those work orders. But focusing, a lot on communication, I think we're having the opportunity, which I think is great, is to engage with our customer base and picking up the phone and chatting with them. Sometimes, prior to this pandemic, we've been so crazy that it's finding the time to do it, but now it's really forcing us to revisit what those important relationships are. And so it's great, it's catching up and getting to know what their challenges are and really supporting them and getting them through it. So yeah, but I think one of the key ones for us was, all the stores opening at the same time. And as I predicted, the password reset, it was like a IT help desk. So they all came flooding in at once, but, I have to say, commend my team for getting through and really support our customer base. And hopefully we've got them all up and running now.
Okay, thank you, Ashley. Michael?
Yeah, I'm going to echo pretty much what everyone else said. As we all know in the FM world, and I'm sure Jordan can attest to this, customers, the FM budget is the first thing to go. And so they're probably working short-staffed with a shoestring budget. And what we've done at Branded Group is I implored my team to stop selling and just really, to Ashley's point, reach out, have consistent and compassionate communication with our clients, because not only are they dealing with long hours, short-staffed, they're also going through a pandemic as humans, and we're trying to make sure that they're doing okay, make sure that they feel okay, not just work-wise, but life-wise.
Thank you, Michael. Jordan, from a retailer and from the FM side, what's it looking like for you and what you're hearing from your colleagues?
Well, yeah, exactly. I am an FM customer, and I think one of the struggles that we have right now is taking a store that was dark 2 weeks ago and returning it to a luxury environment, but not even a luxury environment like it was before we closed, really an all new way of doing business. We're focusing a little bit more on retail to go and appointment-based shopping. And we're coming to learn that this isn't necessarily going to be a temporary adjustment. That at Bottega we are unapologetically expensive, and that means that our customers have to have solid financial backgrounds to really be interested in our product. And a lot of times that means they're in an older demographic, and they're a higher risk demographic and not that likely to return to brick and mortar. So how do we reach out to them and keep those connections going? And when we do get them into the store, how do we make them feel comfortable and safe? And that's a lot of what I'm charged with, making sure that we have the PPE available and everything that we need to keep them safe, but still maintain a really elevated environment.
Well, thank you, Jordan, on that. Real quickly, before I go to question number 2, I'm going to go ahead and call out, I don't know, the purple llama in the room. I know that you may be experiencing on the audience and a little bit of technical anomalies, if you will. And I just say such is the world of the digital world and the world of technology. So everyone is aware of it and doing what we can on our end and on each panelist's end. So just kind of bear with us, and we'll just move on as best we can. So, and again, I want to reiterate, if you want to pose a question, click that Q&A button down at the bottom of your screen and pose your question. Also, make sure you note who the question is for, unless it's for all the panelists. And if it is, just say all panelists and write your question, or put each individual panelist's name next to your question. Okay, for question number 2, and we'll be starting with Ron Prager with Brinko again. How have you adjusted your business model to support your customers?
We're finding that we had to change many of our processes. We had most of the tools in place, but now we had to activate them. So obviously, having everybody working off-site or remotely, the processes on-site, not within our offices, but at our customers' sites. So now we have to do contactless validation of on-site compliance. There's IVR from a store phone is no longer a possibility, because you don't want people passing the phone back and forth. You don't want them getting that close to each other. Next, social distancing. You can't walk within 6 feet of that store manager. That store manager leads you to the roof hatch. You must walk 6 feet behind them. PPE requirements. Well, the technicians must wear PPE. They must sanitize it before leaving the store, before entering the store. Some of our clients are taking the technicians' temperatures before they're allowed to enter the store. Health checks. Our subcontractors are required to do health checks on their individual technicians. We're trying to stay out of the stores completely. A lot of our stuff, like Bill's, is on the roof. And so if we can stay out of the store completely, we will do so. But we still have to validate on-site compliance, and we still have to validate the actual work performed. We're doing that with photos. We're also investing in new technologies for on-site compliance at the equipment itself.
Thank you, Ron. Bill, what about Pegnato Roof Intelligence Network?
Well, again, dovetailing on what Ron said, we're all dealing with technicians, so it is about, touchless verification that they've been on site. So that's somewhat changed. I think I already shared with you in terms of our production, our project process, what changes we've made. But quite frankly, I think with the technology that we have nowadays, it's almost been seamless getting the people working from home. Everything is in the cloud, all of our CRM systems, we are integrated with Office Tracks and all those things. So it really is, it's never a good time to have stuff like this happen, but if it would have happened 20 years ago, you would have talked about complete shutdown. But I think now with technology, we're up and running, and bring it on, so to say.
Thank you. Ashley?
I think a key thing for us was supporting, all our customer base with, our platform. And as we said, we were able to get a lot of people working from home and a new way of dealing with how to raise your work orders and manage. But as I said, a lot of things have been somewhat quiet. We've had to change our processes for things like IP addresses, just making sure that they can access things, that customers using single sign-on. We've had to be very flexible and adapt, how quickly we implement some customizations as well for compliance. But it's also a great opportunity for us to review business processes and see what they need to work in this new norm, and which seems to be continuously changing. So I'm not sure what the new norm is anymore, but key thing for us is technology supporting them.
Oh, well, thank you, Ashley. I know from an FM standpoint, Jordan, how are y'all trying to change things?
At this point, we're just struggling to get everybody all the work done before we open our doors that we possibly can. And, I'm going to go back to what I said before. We're standing in line with everybody else. From an operational perspective, what we're learning is that, we haven't been in the office in Financial District in Lower Manhattan for, a number of months now. And we're all realizing at the same time that we're communicating better than ever, and that we're far more productive. And, those of us like myself who travel in from the suburbs are, getting 3 hours of their life each day back. And, a lot of that is going into office work. So we're really reevaluating the need to sit in a physical office 5 days a week. And I think we might see some permanent changes there.
All right. Thank you, Jordan. Before we get going on the rest of the questions, I just wanted to point out that a transcript of this town hall will be available. It's being created as we speak, and it'll be available on connexfm.com. So going to questions, we actually have a question from one of our audience members. It looks like it may be just to everyone. So the question is this: has anyone had to deal with declining entry to someone due to negative indications on a health check? Let's go with Ron. Oh,
sorry. No, not at this time. We have, truthfully, if somebody feels ill, hopefully they're staying home. So no.
Okay. Bill, how about you?
Not from a health perspective, but from a scare perspective. We've had technicians turned away because maybe some lack of communication, and people have more heightened awareness like right now about letting people, into their locations if they're not sure. So, but it's not like they took their temperature and said they couldn't come in. They just, people are very, very apprehensive. I think one of the panelists said that before. It's very, very, very apprehensive socially.
Okay. Ashley, what about you?
Well, typically we wouldn't deal with anything like that. The only thing we can do is support our customer base, that if a technician has been turned away, that they can redispatch the work order and send another technician if that was to occur. But we haven't really heard anything back from our customer base about that.
Jordan, from your perspective on a retailer side, have you run into that, or have you heard of anything and how they dealt with it?
Sure. Well, it kind of in the same vein, we have had instances where we've asked clients coming in to wear a mask, and if they didn't have one, we have them. We're ready to provide them, and by and large, that's worked very well. We have had a little bit of pushback from time to time, but we're pretty used to dealing with delicate clients, so we made the best of it.
Carrie, I want to weigh in real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Something from the association viewpoint that we are watching, we're seeing, It's interesting. You're even seeing this with the athletes that are having to go back, and some of the documents they're being made to sign to certify that they're not going to hold anyone liable if they come back and certain things happen. But liability protection for businesses is something that's going to be enormously important, and how all that plays out, because we know there are lawsuits already being generated. So on the one hand, we need to open up our businesses, but on the other, if they're going to be saddled with endless lawsuits from someone who may in good faith have let someone in who is infected. So that's all going to play its way out, and it's in front of the Congress right now.
Thank you, Bill. Michael, have you had to deal with any decline in anyone, employee or whatever, entry due to negative indications on a health check?
No, and sorry I disappeared for a second there. We had a power outage at the place I went to go to make sure that the Wi-Fi worked correctly. So yeah, we haven't had to turn anyone away because we haven't opened our offices back up, and we honestly probably won't be doing so until the end of the year, just because we're so good at working from home now. There's no, exactly what you guys are talking about. We don't want to open ourselves up to liability of having someone come in the office feeling uncomfortable, things of that nature.
Right. Understandable. Thank you so much. Again, before I go to the next question, just want to reiterate in case somebody just tuned in. If you click the Q&A button down at the bottom of your screen and enter your question, note which panelist the question is for, unless it's for all panelists. And again, the transcript of this town hall will be available on connexfm.com. So next question I have is for actually specifically directed at Michael. At Branded Group, you were kind of known as a company culture creator. How has working remote affected Branded Group's culture, maybe for you, your team, and your FM partners?
Yeah, thanks, Kerry. You know, our company culture is the foundation of our organization, and without our team, Branded Group would cease to exist. So we've just been finding new ways to connect with our employees over the pandemic. And the one that I'm the most proud of that we just completed on the first week of June was our first ever virtual 5K. And it was so successful, it's going to become an annual event. And our team members and family members signed up. They got to print out their own little bib, and we had over 60 participants, and we raised over $1,500 for Second Harvest Food Bank. So to be able to raise $1,500 during this time, I thought was pretty cool.
That's great, Michael. What about the rest of the panelists? Bill, you want to weigh in on the working remotely, et cetera?
Yes, quite interesting. As soon as we got into this, we did a daily Zoom call that we continue to do every day. It's sort of a 9 o'clock get together. Number one, I think I said before, for these millennials that, you know, they really took to this, you know, they love working from home. And they, you know, I actually hear them tell me that they're more productive from working. So I'm kind of a boomer, so I'm not so sure, but, you know. But it's really interesting that we have gotten to know each other a whole lot better. You know, and I owe this to my partner, Mariella, who I think most of you guys know. You know, we've really made it sort of, besides talking about giving them business updates, celebrating some of the successes that we're having through this. But, you know, she started asking questions, you know, like the question of the day was, you know, if you're on a desert island, what's your favorite food? You know, what would you couldn't live without? And what's your favorite color? And you know, then I'm also noticing, you know, I'm in their living room, you know, because they're on this Zoom call, but it's, you know, and then we got cats walking by. And I mean, it's actually fun. And again, in my office environment, which I'm back in my office, there's no way that I would have this interaction with the team. So again, silver lining here, which I think is very, very interesting. And I'm sort of proud of what we've been doing. It's fun too.
Great, Bill. Ashley, Michael, anybody else? Just kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ashley.
One of the key things for us is we always talk about our work colleagues as being our family, and we've, as you guys have said, we've had plenty of celebrations within the company over the past few months. We have our lead developer who is celebrating his 20th year work anniversary with us, which is pretty awesome. So we're waiting to celebrate in person with him. We're also waiting patiently on the safe arrival of a little baby girl, who's our product manager and soon to be daughter. And yeah, we have celebrated multiple birthdays, as on the Zoom calls, and as you said, get to meet and greet with the extended family. So pets, you name it. So whoever seems to be in the background of the Zoom calls. So it's kind of, been great to still maintain that day-to-day contact and just the personal aspect of, supporting our team and getting through this.
Thank you, Ashley. Bill, I forgot to ask you, what is your food if you're stranded on a desert island? Which food did you pick?
So Mariella makes an English muffin with cheese on it and pickles. No, it doesn't. It's sort of like my favorite go-to midnight snack. So that was mine.
Okay. Michael, what about, not Michael, sorry, Ron, what about working remote?
So fortunately, we've been able to bring our entire pre-COVID team back working remotely. Communication is definitely critical. We started out doing daily conference calls. Now we've moved to weekly Zoom calls. These are departmental calls with notes being taken. I think most important is that our employees know that their health and safety is our primary concern. They also need to understand that as a company, we're in it for the long haul and we're willing to commit the resources that are required. We try to be as transparent as possible with all of our employees and reinforce the company culture. Basically, they need to be proud of what we do and how we do it. And that keeps them engaged.
That's great, Ron. Thank you. Jordan, I don't know if that's really applies to you. I mean, have y'all, what have you been doing from a staff standpoint? Is it just been a furlough situation, or has there been any kind of interaction with your staff?
No, well, so from a store staff perspective, our parent company, Caring, committed early on to keep everyone fully hired and
wonderful.
Yeah, and fully paid based on, I don't know, historical payment if they were like commission based or whatnot. But so from a staffing perspective, we've been 100% the whole time. And I kind of already discussed how we're looking at working remotely and possible long-term changes in that regard. But one thing I didn't mention, and it's actually been pretty important, is that most of the office, certainly on my team, we're running for trains at the end of the day, trying to get that commute started as quickly as possible. And we're not doing that anymore. So we've enjoyed the occasional Zoom happy hour, and we're actually socializing more than we ever have because we have that extra time. And honestly, we have seen so much of our family recently that a little extra time with work colleagues is actually a nice thing.
That's great. Wonderful. All right. So going to the next question. This is initially for Ashley, Dr. Ashley with Office Tracks. In the area of FM change management, could you speak on the need for new processes and interacting with your supplier partners? FM's interacting with supplier partners?
One of the key things for us is, trying to identify what is it they're trying to achieve and what's the best way to do it. So this is the opportunity where we're going through processes and analyzing them and really trying to make sense of it. Typically most people do what they've always done previously, right? And they continue on the same path. So during this period of time, we've had the opportunity just to sit down and review with a lot of our customers. You've been doing this in a particular way for so long. What can we do to revisit this and look at the new technologies that we have and try and support them through more efficient ways of working. and trying to, you know, then take that information and train others and really get them on board. So it's, you know, what change is like, people find it difficult. And I think the key thing for us is, you know, this has been a great period of time for us to support all the employees and transition through it. So I guess that's the thing, is looking at the processes and what we have in terms of features, you know, the checklist. You know, typically people work, you know, from paper-based and Excel spreadsheets, and now a lot of our systems, you know, can help automate that. So it's trying to improve and the efficiencies, and the mobile aspect is really important, I think, for a lot of our customers, the portability and, you know, as we said, sometimes it's a good thing and sometimes it's a bad thing. You find yourselves working a little bit longer, but having that capability to pick up the phone and check, you know, your work progress as and when you need it, particularly during these times of emergencies, has been particularly important. So.
Okay, thank you, Ashley. Anybody else want to weigh in on change management and new processes that you're having to put in place?
Oh, and real quick, this is one area with Connex. It's obvious that we had such a strong, and still do have such a strong culture of in-person meetings. And so Connex has had to evolve into, well, completely virtual meetings. But for our membership out there, as you might expect, we're already planning for 2021 and beyond. Our meetings are going to be hybrid from here on out. There will always be a virtual type of meeting moving forward. And so that alone is a significant change for Connex and what Prism used to be and what Connex was just a few months ago.
Yeah, thank you, Bill. Any other panelists want to speak on change management? Just wave, no? All right, we'll go to the next question. I'm going to direct this to Ron and Ron Prager and Bill Pagnato. How do you, as highly engaged supplier partners, as you all four are, how are you keeping your own staff engaged during, you know, such challenging times, you know, so that you're there for your customers? You know, Ron, you want to start off?
Well, that was pretty much my answer to the prior question, which was communication being critical, employees knowing that their health and safety is our primary concern. Again, having the Zoom calls, knowing that we are in this for the long haul, and I'm willing to commit whatever resources are required, and full transparency to our staff.
Thank you, Ron. Bill, how are you keeping your staff energized and engaged?
Yeah, you know, I think I pretty much answered that again on the last go. I talked about our Zoom calls, but I want to dovetail on what Ron reminded me. Day one, you know, we maintained full employment, and we told our people that Marielle and I were going to do whatever it took personal finances to make sure that we stayed the course and that we came out on the other side. So that was a real big commitment we made and still continue to make.
All right, thank you, Bill. Any other panelists want to weigh in on that? No? Okay. So I have a question. Michael, you had a recent article on Forbes.com. I think it was leading with vulnerability during times of uncertainty. Can you discuss a little bit on how authentic communication skills build trust, and discuss how and why you lead with vulnerability and transparency?
Sure, Carrie. If you know, I've always carried myself authentic and as a very vulnerable leader. And I had my most vulnerable leading moment about a month ago because we unfortunately could not keep all of our employees staffed when the pandemic hit. And we did have to furlough over 50% of our workforce. And I led a Zoom call with them because we were starting to get questions as things started to reopen. When are we coming back? Who's coming back first? How's that working? And unfortunately, the answer to them was the workflow is going to determine when we can start calling people back so that we can afford to employ everyone. And it's going to be a slow climb. So I got every single one of my employees on a Zoom call and told them that they would not be coming back as fast as we'd like. And if they needed to look for alternative employment, we'd be more than happy to write them a letter of recommendation, and that their job would still be there when it did open up. We'd call them and ask them to come back if they had found other employment. And that was probably the hardest conversation I've had to have as a leader. I didn't, when I started Branded Group 6+ years ago, I didn't sign up for something like that. But like I said, being authentic and vulnerable has allowed me to have those kind of conversations through this time.
Thank you, Michael. Anybody else have anything to add to what Michael was saying in that area? All right. So this is really for all the panelists. And again, reiterate, if you have a question, feel free. Let's hear from you. We want to hear from you. In the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, just submit your question and who the question is, to whom the question is directed. In the meantime, for all panelists, so bear with me, it's kind of a long question, so kind of follow me here. What adjustments or challenges do you now find your company and maybe even the FM customers that you have addressing with the whole current environment, civil unrest, not just this pandemic, but pandemics in general. Now coming up, you're getting into hurricane season. We've had tornadoes and continue to have tornadoes, then fire dangers in California and other places, flooding due to excessive rain. I guess the question is kind of, what are you doing to prepare for that now? It seemed like, the COVID thing caught everybody off guard. And then on the heels of it, we have civil unrest. So what are your companies doing, and what are you seeing your customers doing to better prepare for this whole litany of things that could come down the pike? Ron, do you want to speak to that first?
Unfortunately, I don't have much to add to it, because in the HVAC world, there's not much that you're doing proactive for these sorts of things. Sure, some of our clients are coming to us and saying, we know it probably doesn't make a difference, but we want to sanitize our coils. Or they're coming to us and saying, we want to upgrade the MERV rating of the filters that we're using, that type of thing. But in terms of preparing for hurricanes or in terms of civil unrest, that sort of thing, there's really not a lot that affects HVAC.
Okay, Ron. Bill, how about you?
Weather is our business. So, we're used to being prepared for hurricanes. But I did learn something from Ron Prager years ago. He probably even forgets, but one of the things that we do is, we generally age our payables to our vendors, but when in a hurricane, we pay them current if they provide us good service. And thank you, Ron. That was a great suggestion. So we have people on board with us through hurricane season. So that's a good thing. So weather on the one hand, with regards to safety and health, I think we're really trying to tread new ground here in terms of our office. We're putting in plexiglass. We want to come back to the office. I do. Again, I told you about the boomer in me. I want to see the people in our office, but I think we're going to probably stage it, and also, some work at home. But the real thing that almost it hurts is the civil unrest, and how we're dealing with that as an organization. And we have team members that are going through some really difficult times. One person said, and we were talking about this, just like what Michael was talking about, being open and transparent and trying to come from your heart. But she says, I've been living with this my whole life, and it kind of hits you in the face. So I don't know if I'm giving you any answers, but it's a real challenge. And I think I've had to look at myself. I think it all starts here. And these kids have helped me in a big way. So
okay. All right, thank you, Bill. Ashley, have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think probably just on the heels of, what everybody else has said, it's, our team we've got such an array of age groupings working with us. Some are, living with their families, and some are independent. And, I know this has been a really testing time, for those that are on their own. So, trying to reach out and make sure that, that they're supported, and, providing the ongoing training and, the listening ear. I think the thing for me has always been about, there's been a lot about change and change management, but, as an organization and a leader within that organization, we have to remember that, we as leaders are concerned about where the organization's going, and how we, work through that change. But realistically, the employees, they're focused on how that impacts them. So making sure that the communication is open with them, and, really, as Michael has said, we've had other organizations that's furloughed their staff, and that's, obviously sends a little bit of panic throughout, your own staff. But for us, is making sure our communication is open and transparent, and doing the same and helping our customer base as well, as they've had to deliver those messages, and support the leaders in those organizations to continue business as normal as best that they can. But our system is there to help change over the rule set, and put those responsibilities with other people. And it's the human side, right? It's supporting, listening, and helping each other through. So we definitely focus on the partnership aspect of it, right? So not just customers, we're partners in all of this. And I definitely think that this type of environment has allowed us, the Zoom calls, getting to see people rather than just being at the end of a phone. It's great sometimes to see the face and the name. So.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Ashley. What about you, Michael? Anything to add to that?
Yeah, I will say we were lucky at Branded Group to be prepared. My business partner, John Thomas, saw this coming a long way down the pike, and had our rainy day fund built up. We had at least, I want to say, 6 months of payroll on hand. And we had also the ability to work from home. We had implemented that program months in advance, and it was on a more of a merit-based system, where one or two people a week would get to go out. And we were able to, on a Friday, flip the switch, and on Monday everyone was working from home. The only issue we probably had, to Ashley's point, was a bunch of password issues and IT help desk, but our customers didn't see the effects of that. So yeah, I'd say I'm more grateful for having those two things in place beforehand, and I'd recommend all companies out there to make sure they do have a disaster management plan in place, and test it to make sure it works.
Right, that's a good point, Michael. Thank you. Jordan, for you, it just happens that we had a question posed, and so it kind of falls into the same area. So question for you, Jordan, is how will this pandemic cause you to pivot your business? I think you've kind of spoken on that a little bit, but do you see permanent changes coming out of this? Is it going to just change? Is the new normal going to be so different? I mean, I know you're in the luxury brand. A lot of people, as this audience member pointed out, they like the white glove treatment. So, and shopping maybe, I don't know, we hope it won't be less fun, but what do you see that as?
Sure. So what we've seen already is portions of our business which were already in place have begun to grow. So we would have concierge shopping or consignment shopping, where we would bring selected products to a client's house and go through it there, and even on occasion with certain clients, leave them for a few days and come back and say, which of these would you like? And we're seeing a lot more of that one-on-one relationship becoming more important, and our newest product lines are really gaining a lot of traction with younger clientele. And what we're seeing there is those are the clients who are more interested in shopping in person, whereas our legacy clients are more interested in that white glove treatment that you're discussing. So we're fortifying those areas in ways that we hadn't before, and I do believe that those things are going to be here to stay.
All right, thank you, Jordan. Basically, we have we've gotten almost down to the top of the hour, so we have time for one more question. Before we get to that, I would personally like to thank everyone for tuning in out in the audience. I'd like to thank all of you panelists. I know I think Bill and Jordan will be thanking you as well again, but I personally, as host, if you will, want to thank you and allowing me to be a part of this, and I really appreciate it. So my last question, actually, we're going to pose to Bill Yannick, CEO of Connex, and my boss. And Bill, before we entered all this COVID-19 world, Connex was talking a lot about new verticals and from a membership standpoint. Can you talk about what's now going on with that?
Yeah, sure. And I'll just quickly, and then after this, I'm going to be turning it over to Jordan to wrap this up. So hopefully I can be brief. But as you've heard from our panelists, you've heard from Carrie, we've heard on the daily grind that since the middle of March, a lot has changed. The financial situations of a lot of companies and associations and people have changed. The amount of freedom we might have to shop or not shop has changed. And certainly the certainty with which we can approach multi-site facility management has changed. What hasn't changed here at Connex, and certainly with organization, hopefully, is you've heard it from these leaders, is the need to communicate is still there. The need to have strong partners. And we hear time and again, when we talked about FMs and suppliers, that partnership has to be stronger than ever, because during times of crisis, folks like that are on this town hall are going to go to their all-star performers. But from the association viewpoint, the need to connect is stronger than ever. And we're going to need to find a way, we being our association staff, find a way to make that happen. These emerged town halls are one way, the daily connects is one way, and you're going to see our team continue to forge ways to connect multi-site FMs with each other and multi-site FMs with suppliers. Another thing that hasn't changed is we still do have a strategic plan and direction for the association that has proved relatively valid, and we'll see as these years go on. But there were three major avenues that we talked about before the pandemic, and my team is working on as we work through the pandemic. The first was an internal operational evolution that we continue on that path. The second plank was the rebrand from the Professional Retail Store Maintenance Association to Connex. One of the major reasons we went to Connex was to expand our focus from retail store maintenance to multi-site facility management. And in addition to that is hopefully we could expand the vertical markets that we serve to our members. That would help on our supplier side and on our FM side. And initially those three verticals were in our financial multi-site FM, entertainment multi-site FM, and healthcare multi-site FM. And certainly if we've learned nothing else, that healthcare, if we didn't know it before, is crucial to the survival of the economy, of our companies. And if you've checked out connexfm.com and our PPE survey that's out there, you'll see there's a huge need for that segment of healthcare, and even in that bleeds into other types of FMs. But what we're going to do to try to put our healthcare new vertical into high gear is to build a new structure within Connex to allow our healthcare FMs and suppliers to connect even better. And it is to form a multi-site healthcare council within Connex. And so initially there are going to be kind of 5 areas that healthcare council will be involved. They'll have a home at connexfm.com. They already have, Healthcare FM already has its own community. They're going to have their own meetings and roundtables. They're going to have their own curriculum and education and resources at our events. And probably most importantly, in this pandemic and this remote time, our education and resources that are going to be available virtually are going to be initially available to the council, and they're going to help build those resources and direct those resources to where we'll go. We've also had the luck, we have leaders across Connex, and we certainly are appreciative of the 5 leaders that join us here today. But Nick Strada of Heartland Dental has agreed to be the initial chair of the Connex Multi-Site Healthcare Council. And so you're going to see that being unveiled, initial meetings being unveiled, and we're really excited about that effort as we continue to serve you. Connex will be here. We're going to be here through the balance of 2020. And with any help from the economy and the other stuff, we're going to have a live Connex 2021 in April of next year. So again, thank you to our panelists. Thank you to our audience. My thanks to the Connex team, and certainly Carrie as our expert host. For a farewell, I'm going to turn it over to Jordan. Jordan Campbell, all yours. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Bill. Yeah, and I just wanted to take, I know that we're hitting an hour, so I'm going to keep this super brief. Thank you to all of our attendees who took an hour out of your busy day to spend some time with us and have some conversation. It was really enjoyable. Thank you to our panelists, not only for bringing your expertise here today, but for your group's partnership with the association throughout the years. We look forward to many more years to come. And lastly, and very importantly, thank you to Carrie and all of the Connex staff for putting in a lot of work, and everybody who's behind the virtual curtain trying to make sure that these meetings run really smoothly. They're doing a fantastic job. We couldn't put it together without them. Well, thank you, everyone. Stay safe.
Thank you. Thank you, Jordan. Thank you again, panelists and everyone. And we'll be back in July. So watch Connex FM and watch your connexfm.com and watch your emails. And we'll be back like I said, in July. And until then, from the Connex studio, so long, everyone. Stay safe.
Thanks, everyone.
You as well.